Hello. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Nellie Galindo, and I am here to regale you all with a tale of my experience with a little something we call abstinence-only education. Before I get into that, though, I'm going to give you a little bit more background about myself. So yes, I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I actually grew up in a suburb of Phoenix called Glendale, which is just Glendale, really? So it's just northwest of Phoenix, not too far away from it. And it's really actually a beautiful place to grow up. Just lots of beautiful desert scenery, lots of swimming pools and sunshine, and lots and lots and lots of conservative fundamentalist Christians, and Trump supporters, and gun supporters, but good Mexican food. Despite growing up in a pretty conservative area, my parents were pretty liberal. Despite that, though, I didn't get a lot of sex ed at home. Like, my mom would kind of tell me everything I needed to know, like, growing up as a woman, like, oh, what's a period? And how are babies made? And my dad would always tell me, don't get pregnant, don't get married. Those were the two rules. Don't get pregnant, don't get married. If you didn't do those things, like, before you turned 18, you were good in my family. The other thing I want to tell you about myself is that I did grow up in a Presbyterian church. My mom went to this church and she would bring us with her. She played the piano for the church and she still does to this day. And so growing up, I considered myself to be a good Christian girl. And I told myself, I'm going to wait until I am married before I have sex. That is where I was. It didn't last long. You'll hear about that later. So I'm going to take you back now. The year is 2002. It is my freshman year of high school. I am at Mountain Ridge High School, home of the Mountain Lions. And we had 2.5 class periods of sex ed. Like, that was it. That's all you got for your entire freshman year, for your entire high school experience, was like 2.5 hours of sex ed. And I don't remember everything that I learned during the sex ed class period, but I'm going to tell you a couple things that I remember very vividly. So my school decided to bring in an outside consultant to come in and teach us. And the first thing I remember is that he identified as a born-again virgin. I'm not here to shit on anybody's religion, like, if that's what you believe, like, that's cool. But there are a couple things. So A, like, and truly, like, anthropologically, that fascinates me. Really? Because, like, I was a Christian and I was like, I don't think that's a thing. And also, like, you know, he didn't have a hymen to worry about, so it's like, how did you know that, like, he became a born-again Christian again? Did it come up in a tutu? Like, how did that happen? But anyway, he stood up in front of class and he said, I had sex when I was 15 at my Christian church camp, and it was awful. It ruined my life. And then I had sex again when I was 22, and it was awful. It ruined my life. So I asked Jesus to give me my virginity back, and he did. I went to a public school, y'all. Like, taxpayers were paying for this guy. So that's the first thing I remember. The second thing I remember was an activity that he did with the class where he gave everybody little pieces of Scotch tape. And he, oh, you know what's coming. He gave us all a piece of tape and he said, all right, kids, I want you to take that tape and stick it on your arm. So we did. And he said, okay, now take that piece of tape off. We ripped it off. Now it's kind of gross. It has arm hair on it. He said, all right, now put that piece of tape back on your arm. You know, it's kind of like the edges are rolling up. It's not really sticking very well. He says, all right, take it off again. Took it off again. Okay, kids, try to put that piece of tape on one last time. We stuck it on there, and like for some kids, it's falling off because they got all this like dead skin cells on there. And it's gross and dirty. And he goes, This is what happens when you have sex with more than one person. It's gross. You don't become sticky anymore. You're not as committed to the person that you're meant to be with for the rest of your life. Like, you don't be like that for your one true partner. At this point in class, I had 2 questions. My first question was, what if you're gay? Because remember, this is 2002, like, gay people could not get married. And I was like, are gay people just like never gonna like ever have sex? Like, that doesn't seem realistic. The second question I had was, oh, what if I don't ever get married? Ugh. What if I actually take my dad's advice and I never get married? Like, does that mean I'm never ever gonna be able to have sex? Like, anyway, I didn't ask this guy these questions because I was like way too scared. So the last thing I remember is the last day of class, our last activity. And he hands out these little cards. They're like little business cards. And at the top of it, it said ATM. And underneath it, it said abstinence till marriage. And then there was a little line for your signature. And underneath that line was a quote from the Bible. Love is patient, love is kind. I went to public school. Like, this was not a Christian academy, like, this is a public school. Just wanted to reiterate that. And he told us, all right, kids, this is what I want you to do. I want you to sign this card. This is your ATM card. And I want you to keep this. It doesn't give you money, but I said, I want you to keep this card close to you at all times so that, you know, if you're getting hot and heavy with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you can look at that card and remember the promise you made to yourself here today that you are going to wait until marriage before having sex. I was like, really? Like, okay, so if you're like getting like super into it with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever, are you gonna like pull out this shitty piece of card and be like, can't do this? I signed the ATM card. Mostly because I just needed to get to my next class. So I'm walking out of the class, I'm in the hallway, and I see my friend Lisa, and she's running up to me, and she goes, Nellie! Oh my God. Ashley just gave her boyfriend a blowjob in the bathroom. That's when I realized, I don't think this is working very well. I don't think this class is what Mountain Ridge High School needs. So that's what I do remember from my abstinence-only education class. Now I'm going to tell you what I don't remember learning about. I don't remember learning about communication. I don't remember learning about consent, because if you're married, then your marriage license is all the consent you need, right? Because it's 1850. I don't remember learning about sexual assault or how to recognize like what an unhealthy relationship looks like. And can you imagine being a kid in that class who has been sexually assaulted and being told that having premarital sex is gross and dirty and makes you disgusting, when for many of us, our first sexual experience was something we did not want. Like, that is fucked up. I didn't learn about disability. You know, disability and sexuality is kind of one intersection that we really never get to learn about, and I have no guarantee, no way of knowing if the kids at my high school who are in a special education classroom got anything, especially when they are most often more likely to be assaulted than anyone else. I didn't learn about queer people. In fact, up until April of this year, it was illegal to promote homosexuality as a valid lifestyle choice in the state of Arizona in public schools. this year, April 2019, they finally took that law off the books. That is fucked up. So, I went home after school that day, and I remember I read an article in 17 magazine that had like a pro-con column about sex ed, and on one side was abstinence-only sex education, which that was the first time I was like, oh, so that's what they taught me. And then on this side was comprehensive sex ed, and I said, that's what the kids at Mountain Ridge need. So I hopped onto AOL, and I went on to sexetc.com and scarletteen.com and advocatesforyouth.org, and I just started researching. I mean, I have to hand it to that guy because he essentially accidentally made a sex educator. So I just started researching. Like, I figured I gotta take this into my own hands, not literally, and just learn myself. And I taught everybody else. I taught my friends. I taught my younger brothers. Then when I went to college, I joined the sexual education team, and we went and we taught at freshman orientation and to the sororities and fraternities and really any group who wanted us to come in and talk about contraception and birth control and consent and sexual assault, and we did that. A couple of years ago, I was working at a nonprofit who served youth with disabilities, and I taught them sex ed. Just because you have a physical disability and an intellectual disability, whether you're part of the deaf community or blind or whatever, doesn't mean that you can't get some. And now I'm teaching sex ed for 8th graders at my church. And it is fantastic because just seeing where these kids start and where they end up at the end of a year, not just 2.5 class periods, but a whole year of learning, it's incredible. Like, it's so incredible to see how empowered they become. Because unfortunately, the way that things are right now, we just cannot rely on a lot of our public school systems to be doing what they need to do. And a lot of them are. A lot of them are reaching out and they're doing really great things. But the vast majority are not, unfortunately. And I think for us as the adults in the room, it's really up to us to advocate for that and to make it better for the kids who come after us, because we were those kids. Like, I was that kid in that crappy abstinence-only class. So whether you vote or whether you advocate to your school boards or volunteer for shift or teach sex ed at your church, it's up to us. Like, sometimes we just have to take it into our own hands, because if we do not, there's going to be a lot of born again virgins running around, and I don't know if that's the world I